It's NFL Daily, taking a look at the playoff picture, this week's games, and what coaches could become head coaches. The Patriots might lose both coordinators to head coaching jobs, but the focus this week is beating the Jets and securing the #1 seed in the AFC. The Vikings need a win to get a bye in the playoffs, and they play the Bears at home in a game they should easily win behind a lights-out defense and an offense that has done well amid injuries. The Eagles already have the #1 seed in the NFC locked up, and they play the Cowboys in a game that means nothing for either team, save for pride and draft pick position, which Cowboys aren't going for some reason. Steelers could still get the #1 seed in the AFC, but they won't try this week against the Browns. Big Ben and Lev Bell both expected to sit. The Ravens' path to the playoffs is easy. Beat the Bengals and they're in. That's all they have to do. The Saints have not yet clinched the NFC South, but they can do so with a win over the Bucs, who are going to keep Dirk Cutter for some reason. In a road game, the Saints are the heavy favorites. The Chiefs are sitting the starters this week, which means we'll see Patrick Mahomes get the nod at quarterback. The Jaguars, meanwhile, won't rest their starters against the Titans this week. Tennessee needs a win badly if they're going to make the playoffs. We'll discuss the Titans' playoff scenarios on today's NFL Daily. The Bills are also fighting for their playoff lives. They must beat Miami and get some help to make the playoffs this season. Seattle beat the Cardinals last week to keep their playoff hopes alive, but now needs to beat the Cardinals at home and hope the Falcons can beat the Panthers. Home field advantage could be huge in this one for Seattle. The Rams haven't locked up their seeding quite yet, but they're going to take the week off anyway. They'll sit Todd Gurley, Jared Goff, and other starters this week against the hot 49ers and quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo. The Chargers are still alive and might get into the playoffs if they can beat the Raiders and get some help. And then the Panthers play the Falcons in the game of the week. Carolina fighting for potential seeding in the playoffs, while a Falcons win puts Atlanta in the postseason. We'll take a look at all the scenarios, preview the games, and more coming up right now on NFL Daily.
Hey folks, welcome into NFL Daily on this Friday evening here on Chat Sports Facebook Live. I'm Cam Rogers. That guy right there is Tom Downey. We have a jam-packed program on tap for you. We thank you for coming along for the ride, throwing those comments, those reactions throughout the show. Tom, a lot to get to here today. Playoff picture, Week 17 preview, and of course, top coaching candidates out there that are primed for a little promotion.
Yeah, we wanted to talk about some of the teams that weren't going to make it to the playoffs because we had a lot of playoff discussion, rightfully so. So the Giants and the Bengals, you guys that are out of the playoff picture, we had to have something for you. You need something positive, right?
My guy Oven commenting already. Giants playoff chances?
100%.
They got it. It's in the bag. Now, all right, so let's get to the actual playoff picture here in the AFC. Here's where we stand. So we got New England at 1, Pittsburgh 2, Jacksonville locked in at 3, Kansas City locked in at 4. The real iffy part is the wild card portion here. Baltimore, Tennessee holding those spots as we stand. And then you have the Chargers and the Bills on the outside looking in. They have scenarios as well. But let's start with the New England Patriots here, Tom. All they have to do is win. They get the #1 overall seed.
And it's very funny to see the way the Patriots and Steelers are approaching this game. Patriots saying, hey, let's just win and take care of business and get that #1 seed. Pittsburgh's like, whatever. You know, it's the Browns. Let's not really try this week. So they're going to sit Big Ben and some others. So I think with the Patriots, though, they are in fantastic shape overall to get the #1 seed and be the favorite entering the Super Bowl.
You're absolutely right. Let's take a look at all of these scenarios here for the Patriots. We mentioned one of them. They have to win. Or if the Steelers lose with Landry Jones at quarterback against the Cleveland Browns.
It could happen.
It really could, honestly. And then the other scenario, Patriots tie to the Jets, and the Steelers tie as well to the Cleveland Browns. So the Patriots sitting pretty to get that #1 overall seed. Let's transition into Pittsburgh now. Pretty simple for them. If they want to get home field advantage, they got to win, and the Patriots have to lose or tie to the Jets. Tom, this isn't surprising that the Steelers are behind the 8 ball in a sense to get that #1 overall seed because they lost to New England
earlier. Only Jesse James had caught the ball.
Yeah, exactly.
They still would have sat their starters in their game against the Browns, would have not mattered, but they would have had the #1 seed.
Steelers 12-3 on the campaign.
What could have been?
Could have been a little better than that if they were to beat the New England Patriots. Okay, so Patriots and Steelers have clinching scenarios. We're going to skip Jacksonville and Kansas City because they're already locked in as division winners. So let's go to Baltimore now. 9-6 on the year. They win or tie against the Cincinnati Bengals. They get that 5 seed in the AFC. They can also get in if they lose. Couple scenarios here. If the Titans lose or tie to the Jaguars this week, and it appears as though the Jaguars are going to go all out in this game, or the Bills lose or tie to the Miami Dolphins, all very possible. The Ravens have a few reasons to get in here.
Look, this should be pretty simple for Baltimore. They win their game and they get the top seed in the wild card, and then they go on the road and face the Chiefs. That's what we think is going to happen.
Yes.
I'll be surprised if it doesn't happen,
Correct.
frankly. And frankly, I think Baltimore not making the playoffs, I think would be one of the biggest surprises this year of the NFL, just because of where they currently sit, their odds, which does factor in like how likely they are to win a game. They're at 97% likelihood of making the playoffs. They should be in. They're about as close to clinching as you can be at this point in the year without actually being clinched.
Baltimore Ravens 9-1 against non-playoff teams. Tom 0-5 against current playoff teams. So big test for the Ravens if they do get into the postseason. They're going to have to prove themselves. Let's go to Tennessee now. They've lost their last 3. Amazingly, still control their playoff destiny. That's all you can ask for in Week 17. If they beat the Jaguars, they get into the postseason. A couple other options. If they tie, Bills lose or tie, Chargers lose or tie, or if the Bills lose to Miami and the Chargers lose to Oakland this week, the Titans could get in at 8-8. That is just so fitting for the AFC this year.
Yes, it is. I think what concerns me the most about the Titans is that they have an easy path to actually getting in. Oh, just win their game, right? Are they going to beat Jacksonville, though? Like, that's where I think things get a little dicey. And the Titans in general have just looked bad down the stretch. They look like a completely different team, or maybe what we thought they were, that early in the year with some big wins kind of muddled out by some bad losses and being what I think was like the worst 8-5 team of the time. So I don't know if this is a good Titans team, and I think maybe the best thing for Tennessee long-term is to lose the game, fire Mike Mularkey, get a new head coach, which we'll discuss here later on in the show.
All right, so the Titans have an opportunity to get into the postseason. So do the Bills. They need to win, and the Ravens have to lose against the Cincinnati Bengals for Buffalo to get into the postseason for the first time in this millennium. Also, some other options here. Bills win, Chargers lose or tie, Titans lose or tie, or the Bills tie, Chargers lose, Titans lose. You give the Bills any shot here?
Yes, but I think that in particular, because the Ravens are not going to lose that game. Let's toss out tie as an actual scenario here. Okay. I think there's a good chance that the Titans lose, but San Diego against Oakland, we'll talk more about the Chargers here as well. Oh, sorry, LA. LA Chargers. Haven't done that in a long time. Made that mistake just now. So the LA Chargers against the Oakland Raiders, soon to be the Las Vegas Raiders. What concerns me about that is the Bills lose the head-to-head matchup. If both those teams are sitting there with 9 wins, the Bills lose out because they made the decision to start Nathan Peterman for no good reason.
Gee, I think Bills fans will have some reason to be angry if that goes down. All right, so there's the playoff picture. Those are the scenarios we are looking at as we head into Week 17. That's the AFC. Let's go to the NFC now. Philadelphia has locked in the #1 overall seed. The NFC playoffs will go through Lincoln Financial Field. Now, the question mark is the 2 seed. Minnesota, they're in a good spot to get it. Here's what needs to happen. A few options here. Vikings win or tie this week.
That one's easy.
That one's very easy. That's against the Chicago Bears. Another scenario, Panthers lose or tie to Atlanta, also relatively possible.
Yeah, that's possible.
And then the Saints just beat Tampa Bay.
Yeah, so it's super confusing as to why that's the case, but Minnesota, with the head-to-head loss in this case to the Panthers, they would be behind them in the seeding. That's how Carolina actually gets the #2 seed. But if the Saints win the division, it doesn't matter because the Panthers aren't there. So Minnesota would end up getting the 2 seed if the Saints win the NFC South.
You got the Rams.
It's kind of weird.
It is a weird situation, and it's kind of funny how Carolina can actually get the 2 seed. We'll talk about that in a few moments here. Rams are there at 3-11-4, and they have clinched the NFC West, so congrats to them. They're going to have a home playoff game. The Saints have not clinched their respective division yet. The NFC South is still up for grabs. The Saints have to take care of business against the Bucs to clinch it, or if the Panthers lose to Atlanta, also a situation where if the Saints tie and the Panthers tie, the Saints clinch.
I'm just really glad that we included all the ties scenarios, which are never going to happen, but they're fun to
figured
have
you
for
appreciate that.
for the one time that it does. It's going to be awesome.
So the Saints sit there at 11-4, and it's sitting pretty to clinch the NFC South. The Panthers still have an opportunity as well. They have to win. The Saints have to lose or tie against Tampa Bay. Also a situation with they tie the Panthers and the Saints lose to Tampa Bay, they would get the NFC South. All right, here's the fun scenario here. This is how the Carolina Panthers get a first-round bye.
Yes, this one's awesome.
Ready, Tom?
Yeah.
The Panthers win. The Saints lose or tie to Tampa Bay. Minnesota somehow loses to Chicago. And the Rams lose or tie against the San Francisco 49ers.
So you're saying there's a chance.
I am saying exactly that. And hey, who
well,
knows?
the Rams aren't trying this week.
Correct.
The Saints play the Bucks, though, and the Vikings play the Bears. So
probably only
weirder stuff has happened, all right?
Yeah.
How crazy would that be? The Vikings jump from 5 to 2 in the last week.
Unbelievable. Well, okay, so we have the Panthers there at number 5. They have clinched a playoff spot. The Falcons have not. Here's what they need to do. Win this week against Carolina, Tom.
Okay.
Clinching scenario right there, probably the most simple. The other one here, Seattle somehow loses to Arizona and Drew Stanton.
I mean, it's not like Seattle's looked great lately.
True.
It could happen. They probably should have lost last week to the Cowboys, but the Cowboys just decided to lose more.
To look worse.
Yeah.
That's a great way to put it. Great way.
Neither team won. The Cowboys just lost more.
Okay, so another scenario, Falcons tie, Seahawks both tie. The Falcons would be in there.
I like that one.
I'm sure you do. All right, let's go to Seattle here. They're on the outside looking in. They do not control their own playoff destiny. Seattle has to win, and then Atlanta has to lose to Carolina. This could actually happen.
Yeah, I actually don't mind this. The key for Seattle, and it's kind of funny how everything has gone Seattle's way to make the playoffs since they lost that bad game to the Rams. Now all they need is the Panthers to beat the Falcons. Carolina's going to try in this game. It is a home game for Atlanta, but there's a real chance Seattle gets that win. They beat the Cardinals team at home, and the Falcons end up losing. That would be a fantastic scenario for Seattle.
All right, so that's where we stand in the NFC here. We want to bring in a weigh-in for the folks at home. Who you got in Super Bowl 52? Hit us with your predictions in the comments section. One thing I want to quickly touch upon, Tom, there's actually a situation where we could see the Saints jump ahead of the Rams because the Rams aren't trying this week. They could go to 11-5, the Saints to 12-4. That could change things a bit. There's
some buzz out there that maybe the Rams just don't want to play the Vikings. They would rather potentially, if the seeding breaks out the way we think it will, and there are no crazy upsets, that the Rams would rather play Philadelphia without Carson Wentz than the Vikings in that defense.
Okay, there you go, folks. Throw in those comments, and we will be tracking them here on NFL Daily. Cam Rogers alongside Tom Downey taking a look at the playoff picture across the NFL. Now, let's stick with the playoff theme here, Tom. We're going to go to Super Bowl odds according to oddsshark.com. And we're going to start off with number 15. These are all the teams that are mathematically in the playoff hunt / they've already clinched. We'll start with the Titans, 125-1. Like I said at the top of the show, they've lost their last 3 games. Not
surprised they have low odds. A, they haven't clinched yet. B, they haven't looked good at all as of late.
So they're there at number 15. Buffalo at number 14. I think it's just more celebratory if they get into the postseason, Tom, rather than actually win the Super Bowl.
Kind of a noticeable difference here for these bottom 2 teams, and then the odds kind of jump back up. And I think you can tell that because Tennessee and Buffalo are ranked as the lowest 2 in the hunt AFC teams, makes me think Vegas believes those 2 teams will not make it to the postseason at all.
Yeah, and perhaps more faith in this team here, the Los Angeles Chargers, 66-1 odds. Phillip Rivers, a big reason why. A couple of great corners on the outside. Casey Hayward, Trevor Williams, and King, and the slot corner is pretty good as well. A lot of faith, I guess, from Vegas, even for a team that hasn't clinched yet.
Yeah, I am not putting my money on them. I know the odds are good right now because they'll go up if and when they clinch a playoff spot, but I don't think the Chargers can get by most of the AFC teams in the postseason right now.
All right, so they're at 13 in terms of Super Bowl odds. Let's go to number 12 here. The Baltimore Ravens, Joe Flacco has the most road playoff wins in NFL history. January, Joe, what can you say?
He's got to do it again this year because the Ravens are going to be on the road for,
that's correct,
you would think, all of the games.
Yes.
Unless something really crazy happens. So I think with Baltimore, if you're looking for a true sleeper, yeah, I guess they make sense.
You say that as if like your hands are tied and
they
there's like a gun
are
pointed
tied
to your
because
head.
I don't know if you can actually call any of the NFC teams sleepers. Because they're all going to have 10 wins.
That's fair.
And Baltimore will technically too, but you look at the no one's going to pick the Chargers. I think the Jaguars have played themselves out of sleeper contention. So in reality, you're looking at the bottom half of the teams in the AFC, and are you going to pick the Chiefs right now? You're not going to pick the Titans or the Bills or the Chargers, so I guess Baltimore makes sense in that area. I do think it's telling, Cam, that they are still behind a team that hasn't actually clinched yet and might be left out altogether.
You're absolutely right. So the Ravens are there at 12. The Seattle Seahawks are there at 11. It's kind of a situation where if they get in, they can be dangerous, but they have to do the first thing first.
They haven't looked good either. So this is not the Seattle team we've seen in years past where maybe they start the year a little bit rough and then they get going in November and December. From what we've seen in December this year from Seattle, they've actually been pretty bad. The defense has been banged up. Russell Wilson has tried to do way too much, more because he kind of has to. So I actually don't like Seattle's position, and I would not like betting on this team, even though the odds are better than some of the higher-ranked teams.
All right, so we got the Hawks at 11, Falcons at number 10, 25-1 odds. And, of course, they have that tiebreaker over the Seattle Seahawks that is very handy right now in terms of the playoff picture. But talking about Atlanta's chances here, Tom, if you want to really pick a sleeper in the NFC, could be Atlanta.
I like it, and I think that the odds are low because they haven't clinched it. I do think that they get that locked up. I think they find a way to win this week against Carolina.
I agree.
And at that point, you're getting some better odds because it's 25-1. It'll go up if and when they make the playoffs officially. Of course, you're doing the risk of getting eliminated before the playoffs even start.
Correct.
With this bet. But I think Atlanta's a pretty decent underdog pick here, especially if they can finally get it all together. The offense has not clicked this year. I think that falls on Steve Sarkisian in particular.
All right, so the Falcons are there at 10. Let's check in with number 9 here. The Jacksonville Jaguars, 16-1 odds. They have clinched the AFC South. They are going to the postseason. They're hosting at least one playoff game. What do you make of the Jaguars here?
I am surprised they're so low. And they're behind a lower-ranked AFC team. They're behind a bunch of NFC teams. I'm a little surprised that their odds are only 16-1. Maybe it's a testament to Blake Bortles. But maybe because that they're at 9 here, maybe they do count as that sleeper team, Cam.
Perhaps they do.
And some good bang for your buck on your bet here.
There you go. All right, so I got some flack on the Cam Rogers show this morning because I was not really hyping up this team, the Kansas City Chiefs, 14-1 odds. I think they should be even lower than that, Tom.
I am surprised they are behind the Jaguars.
Yeah.
I don't mind 8 as the actual number for them, but I am surprised it's 14-1. I'm surprised that they have the same odds as the team that we'll get to here in just a minute. I would have them with lower odds. I don't like the value on this particular bet.
All right, so the Chiefs are there at 8. We're going to put the Carolina Panthers at number 7, 14-1 odds. I like this a lot.
I do too. I think Carolina has the quarterback and they've got the defense. I look through the NFC teams, and for the most part, with maybe a couple of exceptions, I like to bet on Super Bowl teams that have a great defense and a great quarterback, or the closest combination of those two.
Sure.
I think with Cam Newton and a solid but not great defense, I think is a big reason that Carolina should have maybe even higher odds than this. I think Carolina, if you're looking for another sleeper team in the NFC, I think Carolina's the team to go with. I like where the Panthers sit right now. Defense hasn't been incredible,
correct,
but it's been good enough with Cam Newton that I think they can make some noise in the NFC playoffs.
They got the front 7. The cornerback position is the big concern for Carolina. They got to blitz effectively in the playoffs if they want to go deep. This team has a couple of good corners. New Orleans Saints, 10-1 odds, checking in at number 6 in our Super Bowl odds rankings. Look, the Saints, Who Dat Nation, I'm feeling this team.
Look, the defense has always been the issue for the Saints the past few years. It's been atrocious. It's taken an offense that should at least win 10 games, if not 11 and 12 every year, and taken them down to 7 wins, 6 wins, 9 wins in a good year. The defense, though, this year, thanks in large part to the presence of Marshawn Lattimore, who has easily been the NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year, has been a fantastic upgrade for the Saints secondary. It's a huge reason why the Saints have gone from a bottom 5 defense into a top 10, top 15 defense. And I do like the Saints a lot. Injuries are a concern for me. They've lost some notable guys on that defense. I don't know if the depth is there, but Drew Brees in the playoffs, I like the sound of that.
Sure.
I like the sound of that in a very hotly contested NFC.
All right, so the Saints are there at 6. Number 5, the the Los Angeles Rams here. And greatest show on turf 2.0. Say what you want. They're number 1 in scoring offense this year.
I've been very impressed and surprised by the Rams, and I like Sean McVay coming out as the Redskins OC. I liked what we saw from him. For what he's done this year, been a fantastic job. I like McVay a lot. He could be a real... I think he should be the coach of the year, by the way. I think the Rams are a real threat with Wade Phillips as DC and that offense clicking on all cylinders.
All right, big point of conversation here. The Philadelphia Eagles at number 4, 8-1 odds. I'm not touching this.
Hey, certain members of the Chat Sports staff, I won't name any names, didn't like certain members, me and you, I think me and you, Cam, having the Eagles at 4 in our power rankings.
Yes.
Vegas feels the exact same way.
Yep.
And if they had Carson Wentz, they would without a doubt be the top team in the NFC. I think they would be top 2 in the odds. But going from Carson Wentz to Nick Foles, contrary to what some of you said in the comments section on NFL Daily, it is a drop-off from Carson Wentz to Nick Foles.
All right, so the Eagles there at number 4.
I love you all.
Minnesota Vikings at number 3, 5-1 odds here. And look, I am kind of salivating over the Minnesota Vikings in the playoffs.
I think you noticed the cluster of NFC teams all grouped together.
Yeah.
I don't think there's one clear-cut favorite. Maybe Minnesota because they have the defense. I don't know if I want to bet on Case Keenum, though. Now, Sam Bradford may or may not return.
He might have to come around at some point, Tom.
I think he's getting back to practice, so we'll see what happens with Minnesota. I do love their defense, though, and I think that's a big reason why they're 3rd.
Pittsburgh Steelers, they too have 5-1 odds. They're there at number 2. Look, it all comes down to Antonio Brown, right?
Yeah.
Can he come back healthy? And look, it seems like he will be back and active at some point in the playoffs, but will he be the same MVP candidate, Antonio Brown? That's the question.
If the Steelers have Antonio Brown, they have a chance to win the Super Bowl. If they don't, I don't know how they'll get past the Patriots if the Patriots are also healthy. I just don't see how.
All right, so they're there at 2. New England Patriots take the number 1 spot, 2-1 odds. You look at Tom Brady's struggles in December, Tom, and I feel like I'm not touching this mark either.
The odds aren't great. Like I think most people would say, who's your favorite? Who do you think will win if you're being unbiased? I think people will groan and say, probably the Patriots, which
right,
is
but I'm
where
thinking
I'm
it's
at.
like better right
2
now.
to 1?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
that's not good return on investment.
All right,
now, you're not going to get great return because there are only a handful of options here, but I don't think it's great return there.
All right, so New England's there at number 1. Let's summarize the Super Bowl odds rankings now, folks. 15 through 11. Titans, Bills, Chargers, Ravens, and Seahawks. None of those teams have clinched a playoff berth just yet. All right, 10 through 6, Falcons, Jaguars, Chiefs, Panthers, and then the Saints. And finally, the favorites, the Rams, the Eagles, the Vikings, the Steelers, the Patriots. Those are your Super Bowl odds rankings. This is NFL Daily here on Chat Sports Facebook Live. I am Cam Rogers. That guy right there is Tom Downey. We're presented by Mizzen and Main. Fantastic performance fabric shirts that you will love. Sweat wicking technology, no ironing needed, no dry cleaning needed. Made right here in America. Comfortable.af is that website, Tom.
Super comfortable. I've been known to sleep in my Mizzen and Main shirt. Now, to be fair,
and I don't judge you for that.
It does typically come after a long night out.
Okay,
and it's
fair.
just sometimes it's just laziness, not always comfortability. But they are super comfortable, and I don't feel bad when I wake up having slept in it, and that's what's important.
They are great for going out, great for corporate parties. Heck, nobody will judge you if you wear them to the gym. They're that comfortable. Mizzen and Main sponsoring NFL Daily here today. Okay, Tom, so we want to give some content out there for the fans that aren't really in playoff contention and maybe looking ahead to a new head coach. So we have some names out there that we are monitoring as perhaps potential head coach candidates as Black Monday is upon us. And we got some kind of fairies and unicorn kind of candidates to start things off,
we
right?
start with the white whales, the types of coaches that are going to be linked to every single job, even though they're probably not going to take it. And who else to start but with John Gruden?
Obviously.
Always John Gruden. The groomers will never die. I thought the Bucs actually kind of sort of made sense. But as we'll discuss later, Dirk Cutter coming back for a 3rd year for no reason whatsoever. So that's where we're at with Gruden and the Bucs. That's crossed off the list there. Bucs are going to keep Cutter for some stupid reason. With these white whales in general, it's a name that the fans always want, like, ooh, I would want him, or always linked in articles of like, all right, here are 12 guys the team could hire. Oh, I don't have a 12th. Let's add this guy to the list.
Yeah, he's just kind of a name that is fun to talk about. We have a reaction poll for the folks at home. Should John Gruden return to coaching? No doubt. Give us a heart. If you like him on air on ESPN, give us an angry face.
Spider 2Y banana, man.
There you go. He's really an entertaining figure. There's no doubt about it. So there you go. John Gruden, name number 1. How about this next one? Jim Harbaugh. Tom, are you a fan of reheating oatmeal?
I actually do. I prefer warm oatmeal.
Oh.
I thought it was really weird that he said he prefers cold. Like, isn't that the opposite of what most people do?
I have no idea.
I was confused. But when it comes to Harbaugh, he's not going to leave Michigan. Every time a job comes open, every time a team wants to fire their coach, one of the first names I hear is, ooh, what about Jim Harbaugh? And I'm like, ooh, what about no? It's just not going to happen. So Harbaugh's going to stay at Michigan. Maybe one day he decides to return, but he's going to stick at Michigan, his alma mater. He's very happy there. And more importantly, he wants to win there too.
Sure. So Jim Harbaugh's there. Let's go to another name, David Shaw, Stanford head coach. You don't see him leaving.
He is often connected, I think, by the people who think, ooh, you know what, I'm smart. How about David Shaw? Like, ooh, I'm thinking outside the box there, but like everyone would like David Shaw. He's done a fantastic job at Stanford. He has NFL background as well with some previous stints. And every time he's been connected to a job, he said, I don't want to leave Stanford. I love it here.
Sure.
So Shaw, I will be stunned if he leaves Stanford right now. Maybe one day, like in a couple of years, he decides, you know, I want to try the NFL. But it's his alma mater. Like that, I think that's a big deal for a lot of the two coaches that we just mentioned with Harbaugh and Shaw. Those are your white whales. There are always some other options at this point. I almost put down Bill O'Brien because he's been able to do every single job, even though he already has a job.
You got to love the rumor season.
Oh, it's insane.
All right, so those are kind of the pipe dreams. Let's go to this category called second chances.
Yeah.
We'll start off with Josh McDaniels. He was once a head coach for the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, it did not go well. One note to whomever hires Josh McDaniels, don't let him be his GM. That's where he ran into issues.
That's the mistake.
Don't let him make the executive personnel decisions. Have a GM in place. But I think if you're looking for a head coach and you want an actual realistic target that's good in what, frankly, I think is a down year compared to last year, I think Josh McDaniels is the way to go. And I think McDaniels is going to be the top target for a lot of teams out there. In the end, though, if I am Josh McDaniels, if I'm looking for one job in particular, I think the Tennessee Titans are the perfect fit for him.
Really?
And I think that, frankly, Tennessee should have hired McDaniels when they hired Mike Mularkey in the first place. I think in McDaniels and Tennessee reunion with John Robinson, who has ties to the Patriots organization, in Tennessee as the tandem is a perfect fit. I think McDaniels in charge in Tennessee, they become an actual Super Bowl threat very quickly.
So we're showing the folks at home a weigh-in. Is Josh McDaniels capable of becoming a successful head coach? Because a lot of people are going to point to his time in Denver. And Tom, that was a long time ago, so it sounds like you're confident that he can be.
I do, and I already saw one comment about the Bears fans wanting Josh McDaniels. Every team with a young quarterback should go, how do I get Josh McDaniels? The issue is, and we've seen this with McDaniels, he's been patient. At a certain point, he's going to say, you know what, I'm going to take that job. Maybe it's this year.
All right, so Josh McDaniels there as coaching candidate number one in our second chances category. Let's go on to the next name. Pat Shurmur, Vikings offensive coordinator, 52 years young.
Maybe we don't count the Browns' tenure as head coach, right? Like that didn't go well. Maybe we just ignore anyone who has Browns ties.
Yeah.
Well, I think what changed for Shurmur was his stints in as the Eagles and the Vikings. Though, see, Minnesota's down to their third quarterback, technically speaking, because of Bradford and Bridgewater being out with Case Keenum in charge. And the Vikings offense, without Dalvin Cook as well, has actually looked really good. Adam Thielen has emerged. I think what Pat Shurmur has done in Minnesota has helped rectify any previous mistakes he had in Cleveland, which, as we know, is maybe not the best way to judge a coach because it's Cleveland and
correct.
You just go there to fail. So I think if you're a team looking for a new head coach and you want an offensive-minded guy, I think Pat Shurmur, if you missed out on McDaniels, you missed out on some of the younger guys who don't have head coach experience, I think Shurmur would be a great fit. If I'm Chicago, I'm thinking, I can hire Pat Shurmur and I can hurt my division rival in the process. I think Shurmur in Chicago could actually be a pretty good fit.
Pat Shurmur has done a lot with the Vikings with not a lot of huge talent. Todd Haley, I feel like he's kind of been the opposite, Tom. So I do want to hear your analysis about him here because it seems like the Steelers have so much talent, but Todd Haley isn't squeezing the most out of them.
I am actually not a huge fan of Todd Haley, but you're going to hear his name connected again this offseason. It was kind of there last year. He's been the Steelers OC for several years now. I actually don't love him as a head coach. I wasn't impressed by what he did in Kansas City. There was the very strange story of Todd Haley thinking that the Chiefs were spying on him. I don't trust Todd Haley to run my team, but he's going to get interest. I think if the Cardinals do end up parting ways with Bruce Arians, I think Haley could return to Arizona. I do think the Bengals will have interest, which I think would be a bad hire for Cincinnati.
So Cincinnati, though.
It would be.
To go out and get Todd Haley.
The ultimate Cincinnati move would be either trading for Hugh Jackson or Jay Gruden or promoting one of their current coaches like a Darren Simmons.
Yeah, I think they actually might go internally there talking about Cincinnati. All right, Todd Haley, another second chance type of candidate here. Let's go into another category, the up-and-comers. Matt Patricia, Patriots defensive coordinator, a really intelligent mind.
He is. You see former rocket scientists on there. We're not kidding or being facetious. He literally was a rocket scientist.
Exactly.
Aeronautical engineering was his major in his job before he went to go before he started coaching. He is a literal rocket scientist.
I wonder what he feels about that saying. This isn't rocket science.
Maybe it's a compliment to him. I don't really know.
Who knows?
I think with Patricia, though, he's been the DC for a while now. I think the big thing for me with Patricia is if you're going to hire him, you're going to have to make sure you get an offensive guy in there as well with him. I think a place like Detroit, with ties with Bob Quinn to New England, Bob Quinn hires Matt Patricia. Maybe they keep another guy we'll talk about here later, Jim Bob Cooter as the OC. Patricia runs the defense. Cooter remains in charge of the offense, and that's how they run things in Detroit.
All right, so Patricia there as a potential up-and-comer who could be a head coach come 2018. How about Matt Nagy, Chiefs offensive coordinator? There have been some spurts where the Chiefs weren't really all that great on offense, but I don't think it's really Nagy's fault.
He wasn't calling the plays for a good chunk of the
Correct.
year, and then once the Chiefs made the change around that Jets game, the offenses looked a lot better. And I think that's some credit there to Nagy. He draws good buzz from within NFL organizations and from other teams. I think if the Browns do fire Hugh Jackson, and I think the Colts as well with John Dorsey and Chris Ballard as those two teams' GMs, I think Nagy makes a lot of sense. Maybe he's a year away from getting the head coaching job. I also said that last year about Sean McVay. I thought it might have been a year away when we were going through all these potential options. I actually thought the Niners were going to end up hiring him. In the end, they got Shanahan. But McVay's done a great job with the Rams. So I think you'll see NFL teams be more willing to risk it on young offensive coordinators and coaches.
This is a name I really want to talk about here. Jim Bob Cooter. Really a complex offense, especially in terms of pre-snap ability, but he has really developed Matt Stafford, a big reason why Stafford got that fat contract. I like Jim Bob a lot.
Jim Bob Cooter saved Jim Caldwell's job a few years ago. They had Joe Lombardi in as the offensive coordinator. Caldwell nearly went to the ground with him, and it was a disaster. I think what Cooter has done, even though the ground game has never gotten going with the Lions since Barry Sanders left, Cooter has found ways around that. And you look from a statistical perspective in terms of points scored, this is the second best Lions offense since Barry Sanders was around. So I actually think that even though he's just 33 years old, I think Jim Bob Cooter is going to continue to draw some buzz in NFL circles. Might be a little early for him to be a head coach, but I think maybe if you're a lesser team, maybe if you're the Browns as well and you don't have the same pull potentially to go out and get somebody, or Bengals, for example, maybe you do settle on Jim Bob and you have him kind of revamp your offense and hopefully groom whatever quarterback you have.
All right, so certainly a name to monitor. Another up-and-comer, John DeFilippo, Eagles quarterbacks coach. What do you think?
You know that you want this guy when the Eagles fans that I've talked to are more concerned about losing him than they are about their OC.
Absolutely.
We'll talk about their OC here in a little bit. But I think DeFilippo is going to be an offensive coordinator somewhere next year. Either in Philadelphia, Frank Reich gets his own head coaching job, or he's going to go be an OC somewhere else. He deserves to be an OC. He has been one with the Browns, which, again, we're going to cross out as not counting because it's Cleveland. I think teams will be like, all right, well, what'd you learn from it? Okay, a learning experience. Not like, oh, you coach for the Browns. That's a negative here. But I think DeFilippo is going to get head coaching interest this offseason. I think if you're a team like the Bears or the Bengals and you have a good young quarterback, maybe not so much with the Bengals, Dalton's getting a little bit older compared to like a Trubisky. I think you have interest in DeFilippo, and I think a lot of teams are going to want him as OC, and that could result in one team saying, you know what, we really want him. You're hired as our head coach. Because his contract's up. He's going to be one of the most talked about candidates here this offseason.
All right, we'll see how the Eagles do in the playoffs as well. Could certainly help his stock. All right, so those are the up-and-comers. Let's talk about the experienced ones out there that could get back into the head coaching fold here. Talking about a little Chiefs special teams action. You like this guy a lot.
All guys that haven't been head coaches before but have been around the league for quite a while, a.k.a. they're over 50 years old. That was our cutoff for this one here. So Dave Taub deserves a head coach. He has been in charge of some of the best special teams for years now with the Chiefs and with the Bears. Was also under John Harbaugh back when Harbaugh was with the Eagles and their special teams coach. So I think with Taub, I think the Indianapolis Colts are going to be one of the top teams for him, and the Browns, if they end up firing Hugh Jackson and go against their word because of the presence of Chris Ballard in Indianapolis as their GM. I think this is the year that Talp gets a head coaching job. I think he does a pretty good job in the end, too. Special team coaches don't often get looked at for head coaching jobs, but like a John Harbaugh, they actually end up being pretty good because there's a little bit more leadership involved than the pure X's and O's.
All right, there you go. Let's go on to Frank Reich, Eagles offensive coordinator. So we're sticking with an Eagles theme here.
Yeah, saw a comment from my boy Jason about saying Frank was a better candidate, and I do think there's a pretty good chance that Frank Reich gets a job this offseason. The second year as Eagles OC has done a really good job helping to develop Carson Wentz, has background as a former NFL quarterback. He is 56, is a little bit older for a potential first-year head coach. But I'll be a little bit surprised if Reich doesn't get a job, which would also allow the Eagles to promote DeFilippo and have him be their OC. But with Reich in particular, I think he's going to go to a team that has a young quarterback, a common theme in today's show here that is trying to develop them a little bit further along. I think the Bears could make sense as an option, hoping to develop Mitchell Trubisky, a couple other options as well. But I would actually be a little bit surprised if Reich doesn't get a job this offseason. I think it's time for him to be a head coach.
All right, so there's Reich. Let's move on to Terrell Austin, Lions defensive coordinator. Been serving there for 4 years now.
You will see him get interviewed a lot. Don't know if he's actually going to get hired, though.
Okay.
This has been the case for several years now. When a team needs to fulfill the Rooney Rule, they give a call to Terrell Austin. For those of you that don't know, the Rooney Rule is the one that requires NFL teams to interview a minority for head coaching position. So Austin is going to get a lot of interviews. I don't know if he's going to get hired. If the Lions do dump Jim Caldwell, I actually think that Austin could be an option here for Detroit to just promote him or to promote Jim Bob Cooter or go out and hire somebody else. But I wouldn't be surprised if Austin is elsewhere, but he's got a lot of experience as a DC. He's been around the league for a while. I think at some point he's going to get the call to be a head coach.
So there's Terrell Austin there in the experienced category now. If you're just tuning in, let's summarize what we have. Top coaching candidates here. We'll start off with the white whales, as we say, the pipe dreams, Gruden, Harbaugh, Shaw. What stands out there?
I think it's a Gruden, and every year we're going to keep hearing the groomers. Every year we're going to keep hearing Jim Harbaugh. Ooh, could he go back to the Colts? Heard that for 4 years now or something like that. It's over a year. It's, ooh, could Harbaugh go to the Colts? It's not going to happen. They are the white whales for a reason. Don't expect them to leave and become their head coach somewhere else or leave broadcasting. Honorable mention to Bill O'Brien, who the Texans, I don't think he and the organization get along all that well. There's been some buzz. I think every job that's come open, Giants, Arizona, if Bruce Arians leaves, those are the two main jobs that I've heard the discussion about. It's, hey, if Bill O'Brien's available, he's our top target. Yeah. But he's not available.
Exactly.
Like, why are we doing this game? So those are your white whales for a reason. They're probably not going to come back to the coaching world in the NFL.
Second chances now, Josh McDaniels, Pat Shurmur, Todd Haley. I like McDaniels a lot. I think he's going to get a lot of interviews during the offseason. He
definitely is going to be the top target for a lot of guys. Another honorable mention here, I think, is Jim Schwartz, the Eagles defensive coordinator. He might get a second chance. Eagles defense has looked really good this year, an upgrade from years past. He just missed the cut. Technically speaking, you could do Dan Campbell as well because he was the interim coach.
There you
go. But both Campbell and Schwartz were on the NFL list of suggested coaches to interview, which I think is weird that the league says, hey, here's who you should talk to. Here's how you should run your team. I don't think Campbell's going to get a head coaching job. He might get a handful of interviews, but I'd be surprised if he got the call. Schwartz, I could see it. With the year the Eagles had, you typically see at times when this is the case, teams often lose coordinators and have to fill from within. Yep. Bengals went through that for quite a few years.
All right, so those are the second chance candidates there. How about the up-and-comers here? Look, Tom, could there be a situation where the Patriots lose McDaniels and Patricia?
I think they absolutely could. I think Bill Belichick will try to keep one of them, but at a certain point, Belichick and the coordinators know, hey, it's time to go be a head coach, and that's kind of the nature of being a coordinator for the Patriots. Eventually, you get the call to be a head coach somewhere else. So that wouldn't be surprised if Patricia, McDaniels, who we discussed earlier, are all in that boat. Some other up-and-comers to monitor here, folks, is there are quite a few names that we didn't mention and didn't have time to get to. Mike Vrabel, who the team seemed to like quite a bit. I don't know why, because the Texans defense has not been good this year. Steve Wilks is possible for the Giants job, the Panthers defensive coordinator. Marquand Manuel, the Falcons DC, the last two guys both would fulfill the Rooney Rule. Same with Harold Goodwin, the Cardinals OC. And then Chris Richard, because apparently Seattle DC means you always get a head coaching job somewhere else. Kind of the nature of that position as well.
Up-and-comers there. How about the experienced ones? And Frank Reich sticks out to me, Tom, because if the Eagles perform well in the playoffs with Nick Foles at the quarterback position, really going to help Reich's stock.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if those first two guys, Taub and Reich, both get head coaching jobs. Might not be quite time yet for Terrell Austin. One more name, George Edwards, the Vikings DC. He's 50 years old. He's done a good job in Minnesota, although that is kind of Mike Zimmer's area. Right. But he might get the call to be a head coach somewhere.
All right, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Top coaching candidates as Black Monday is upon us. It's NFL Daily here on Chat Sports Facebook Live. Hey, folks, Cam Rogers, Tom Downey with you. We're presented by Mizzen and Main, talking about fantastic performance fabric shirts that you will love. Comfortable.af is indeed the website. Sweat wicking technology, no ironing needed, no dry cleaning needed. Fantastic products, and they're coming along for the ride here on NFL Daily. All right, Tom, you ready for the previews of Week 17?
Yes, I am.
All right.
Some games that don't matter at all, but we're going to talk about them very briefly.
Yes, we will. This game does matter, though. Jets at the Patriots. Jets always play New England tough, but the Patriots, they know what they need to do. They win, and the AFC playoffs go through Foxborough.
The Jets have been a nice surprise team because some thought that they might not win a game all year,
Correct.
and yet here they are at 5-10. This, though, is going to be a Patriots win. I will be stunned if they don't win this game and don't win it handily. They know what's on tap. I think Belichick and co are like, hey, let's get up big early and then sit everyone. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that's what we see. If we see a game for the first half and the Patriots kind of just sit down after that. I like to win on this one. It's a 15.5 spread. Give me the Patriots easily.
All right, I'm going to take the Patriots as well in this one. They get that #1 overall seed. Talking about games that do not matter, well, you could look to a couple of them in the slate here. And again, Patriots, Jets, that one does matter. But Redskins at Giants, not so much. The Redskins 7-8, taking on the Giants 2-13. The Giants are going to be without Sterling Shepard, Tavares King, Evan Engram. Yeesh. I mean, a part of me feels that the Giants can still win this game just because neither team's really motivated and you kind of want to go with the home team.
Hey, but Giants got to do the right thing here, and they got to take one for the team and lose so that they make sure that they get the #2 pick in the draft. So they got to find a way to lose.
So you
this
believe
game.
in tanking?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, my gracious.
We're talking a lot about tanking on this show. Also, they suspended Eli Apple because that situation is a gigantic mess. Apple might not be with the Giants next year. #10 pick, technically a year ago. We'll call it 2 years ago because it's almost time for the next NFL draft. We'll talk more about here on NFL Daily in future shows. But it's a mess. And the Giants, it's not a good situation right now.
All right, so that one in the Meadowlands, Redskins and Giants. Next game here, Bears at the Vikings. This is very important for Minnesota because they can't slip up, Tom, or else they could lose that 2 seed.
Yeah, I think that they can still lose and get it, but I think with Minnesota, they're playing the Bears at home. They'd like to get some rest early. The best case scenario for Minnesota, they get up big early, and they let Teddy Bridgewater play quite a bit in this second half, or even in the first half if it's that type of game. So Minnesota should come out hot early and then say, all right, we got this, we're good. They should win pretty handily. It's a 12-point spread at home. I'll be stunned if Minnesota doesn't find a way to win this game.
Give me Minnesota as well. I think they'll take care of business in that one. All right, Cowboys at Eagles. This is very interesting here because the Eagles already have the #1 overall seed locked up. But the question is, does Doug Peterson want to prove to the world that Nick Foles can win him games effectively?
This is going to be an interesting game because the Eagles haven't really come out and said what they're going to do. For the most part, they've been kind of coy. And Peterson said he wants all the starters to play. I don't know if that means to play the entire game or at least start the game. Maybe it's the latter one, they start and they get pulled. I would like to see the Eagles, get Nick Foles some reps, pull him out, because for whatever reason, the Cowboys have said, hey, we're going to try and ruin our draft position because they're stupid sometimes and doesn't make any sense. Guys, if you have nothing to play for, lose the game. Take one for the team and make sure that you lose and get a higher draft pick. It's better for the team's future going forward.
All right, well, Eagles fans are usually well represented in the comment section.
Yes, they
Will
are.
the Eagles make the Super Bowl? Comment fly, Eagles fly, if you think so. Tom, you seem to have gotten the fair share of brutal talk from Eagles fans out there because of your lack of faith in Foles.
I just don't know why me saying that Carson Wentz is a drop-off from Nick Foles is a drop-off from Carson Wentz is a controversial statement.
You're a hater.
That made me stupid. I was on board the Eagles pretty early this year. I defended them on multiple shows, but I think going from Wentz to Foles is a big drop-off. And when you're splitting hairs in the postseason, I think if Wentz was here, they'd be my easy pick to win the NFC. With Foles at quarterback, it puts things in in confusion, and I don't know if they're going to be enough to beat a better defense in Minnesota, beat a better quarterback in a Drew Brees or the Rams offense, which has been better compared to what they have with Nick Foles at helm. So there's a chance, but I'm not feeling super confident in Philadelphia with Nick Foles at the helm. So I am sorry. I don't know what you guys want from me.
Great response there. All right, let's go on to the next game here. Nothing much to see here. Packers at Lions. No Aaron Rodgers. He's been put on IR, and the Lions just playing out the string as well.
Hey, the Lions come to the Packers for the first time since 1991 with a win. How about that? How insane is that stat?
That is pretty insane.
I actually hope Detroit wins that game. How cool would that be?
Wow.
Even though Detroit blew it this year, but more likely the Lions fall apart and maybe they fire Jim Caldwell, which I kind of think the Lions are in the Marvin Lewis situation from a few years ago when the Bengals were still kind of good, but they couldn't actually win the games that mattered. With good coordinators, I think Detroit's in a similar boat right now. So if I'm the Lions, maybe I lose the game, get a higher draft pick, and then fire Caldwell, go get somebody else.
Zero faith in Brett Hundley. I'm going to take the Lions in this one. Let's move on to the next game here. Browns at Steelers, and no Big Ben, no Le'Veon Bell in this one. In comes Landry Jones.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised that they're not playing Joshua Dobbs. Like, I would have much rather seen Dobbs get the reps here because the Steelers want Dobbs, I think, to be their long-term quarterback, right? Like, as opposed to Landry Jones, because I've seen Landry Jones play, and he's awful. And Dobbs has to be better than him, right? Like, Landry Jones is terrible, and that might be why the Cleveland Browns ruined the parade plans. Ooh. They've already been planning the parade in Cleveland for going 0-16. And if they lose, that's what they're going to do. How awesome will that be?
All right, let's say the Browns go 0-16. Can you imagine the amount of hangovers in Cleveland that next day after the parade?
Celebrate, baby. Also, if they go 0-16, you have to fire Hugh Jackson. Also, the way he's handled Deshaun Kaiser in and of itself is a fireable offense.
All right, so Browns at Steelers. Steelers favored by 7 in that one, which is actually kind of surprising. All right, let's check in with the next game here. Texans at Colts. No meaning in this one. Tom,
Blah.
I think the Colts get a victory. They go out in a positive note, I guess.
I mean, the Texans aren't playing DeAndre Hopkins. This line actually shifted from a pick-em to Colts by 5 because of Hopkins' injury. So I guess the Colts win. It's probably better if both teams lose, so maybe they both tie. That's a fitting end of this year. These teams tie in an ugly game. Or better yet, it's tied at the end of the half, and they both say, let's just not play overtime. Let's not waste everyone's time.
Let's end the year.
End it in a tie.
Pack up the U-Hauls. Texans, Colts, eliminated from playoff contention. All right, next game. This game was moved from the 1 o'clock window to the 4 o'clock window. Bengals at the Ravens. John Harbaugh, by the way, not very happy that this game got moved to later because he thinks the fans won't show up because of New Year's Eve.
I mean, well, it is the Bengals, so they don't travel well. They should still show up, though, right? Like, and the reason the NFL did it was to make sure all the games that were going to impact each other, like the Ravens and Titans and Bills, were all at the same time. So I'm sorry, John, but I actually think the NFL, shockingly, made a right decision here. Very rare for the NFL.
What do you make of this game here? Baltimore get the win?
Oh, Baltimore wins easily.
Yeah.
Not even close.
All right, I'm going to take the Ravens as well. Let's go to Saints at Buccaneers here. This one has big-time playoff implications because if the Saints lose, that opens the door for Carolina to snag the NFC South. How do you see this shaking out?
I see the Saints going into Tampa and beating them up pretty good.
Fair enough.
The Bucs have looked better last week, really the last 2 weeks. Jameis Winston, I think, after coming back from that injury, has looked a lot more confident, just has played better overall, but I'm still going with the Saints in this one. I think they beat the Bucs. They're playing for more. I just don't trust Tampa Bay overall, and I think that Dirk Cutter is not a good head coach.
And yet he's returning.
Yeah. We'll get to that news and note here because it just doesn't make sense to me, Cam.
Yeah.
I didn't think the Dirk Cutter hire made sense in the first place, and now they're bringing him back for a third year when there's been public reports that he doesn't get along and that there's some issues between him and his star quarterback. Winston did not improve this year.
Apparently he lost the locker room.
Why are you keeping him? Go get somebody else. Go get a coach who can actually develop a quarterback. Like, the Dirk Cutter hire made no sense in the first place. He should not return as the head coach. He needs to absolutely be gone. I am stunned that the Bucs didn't hire somebody else. Now, there was a report actually earlier in today that there had been expectations within other NFL front offices that the Bucs were actually going to get John Gruden. That they ended up saying that they're going to keep Dirk Cutter, or at least the report they're going to keep Dirk Cutter. Makes me think that maybe he said no. But either way, I think you can do better than Dirk Cutter if you're the Bucs.
In 31 games under Cutter, the team ranks 22nd in the NFL in scoring, and they've allowed a league-worst 5.9 yards per play. So all that said, does Dirk Cutter deserve to return as Tampa Bay's coach?
Nope.
Big fat heck no for Tom Downey. He's throwing up his angry face. I agree. I don't think he deserves to return. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers got to move on because priority is Jameis Winston. And if Winston is rifting with Cutter, you got to move along.
Tennessee, don't make the same mistake, especially if you miss the playoffs. Let go of Mike Mularkey. Go get somebody else.
All right, so Tampa Bay and New Orleans this week in Tampa Bay. Chiefs at Broncos. Patrick Mahomes time, Tom.
Oh, baby. I'm actually excited to watch this game to see how Mahomes fares. Even though the backups will be in for Kansas City, so he's going to be playing with quite a few bums out there. But I want to see how Mahomes does. Denver's favored, which is weird.
Kind of funny.
It's Week 17 is weird, man. People don't know who to start in fantasy if you do have a Week 17 game. People don't know who to bet. So I'm not putting money on this game. I just want to see Patrick Mahomes have fun.
All right, Jaguars at Titans. This one is interesting because it seems as though the Jaguars are going to play their starters. The Titans have to win. I guess I could say not have to. They could actually get in at 8-8, but they really should win this game if they want to have any chance here. What do you make of it?
Jaguars going with the power play, refusing to bench their starters, thinking that probably won't matter much to them. I love it, trying to hurt the Titans. Tennessee's look bad. Tennessee's favored, though, because Jacksonville might end up, sitting the starters later on in the game. But Jacksonville looked bad against the Niners. I don't know if you want to back into the playoffs. Maybe they try and end the year well, have some momentum going into the playoffs, have some confidence going in there. So I still like Jacksonville to win this game. I don't trust Tennessee right now, even though they did look much better against the Rams.
Jags are locked in as the number 3 seed in the AFC. All right. Let's stick with the wild card theme here. Bills at Dolphins. Buffalo's got to get this victory, but for some reason, I could see a Miami upset here.
I could too, because Miami's a weird team. They're better at home, and they're very inconsistent, and that kind of fits their quarterback, Jay Cutler. It's kind of funny how that works out.
Very interesting.
I think with Miami, they'll put up a good fight, but Buffalo's playing for more. They've played a little bit better as of late. I think Buffalo wins, but even if they do win, Cam, as we've discussed on many shows, they might not get in because they decided to play Nathan Peterman.
Unbelievable. Yeah, the Bills need help if they do win.
I think that they would have won that game had they played him.
Sure.
I really do.
All right, that one in the late window, 4:25 Eastern Time. Bills at Dolphins. Cardinals at Seahawks now. This one in the late window as well. Seattle's got to get that victory and hope Carolina can upset the Falcons.
The late window is stacked because all the games that matter are at this time frame. So it's going to be a very chaotic there, Dave, before we get ready for our NFL Daily Highlight Edition for you folks on Sunday evening. I like Seattle. I think that they're a better team overall. They are better at home. They did beat the Cowboys by, losing less, but I think they can do something similar against Arizona because Arizona is not that good either because of their injuries.
Yep.
Seattle has to look better, though. They have to find a way to the defense to step a little bit more and the offense to not let Russell Wilson die. Please.
All things considered, Cardinals at 7-8, not too bad with all the injuries.
Everything has gone perfectly for Seattle after the Rams loss. If they win this week, they have a real chance.
Okay. Next game here, 49ers at Rams. No Goff, no Gurley, no Aaron Donald. That could mean Jimmy G, win number 5.
It very well might, because this is a Rams team that's not going to try, which I don't mind. I actually kind of prefer my guys to rest. The Niners have not tanked, which in most cases I disagree with. But they've done it because their quarterback has played really well. It's revitalized the team. If you end up not tanking because you have a young quarterback that emerges, that's when it's okay. So yeah, they're not going to get as high of a draft pick, but the Niners have found Garoppolo. They're going to be every fan and pundit's sleeper pick to make the playoffs next year.
Oh, absolutely.
Every single
They're going to be next year's Tampa Bay Buccaneers from this year.
Exactly.
Essentially. All right, Niners at Rams, 4:25 Eastern Standard Time. Raiders at Chargers. The Chargers got to get this victory. I think they can do it, Tom. The Raiders, they've laid down.
Yeah, the Raiders' defense has looked better under John Pagano, and as I said when they first hired him, they were going to fire Ken Norton, promote Pagano to the interim DC, and the defense was going to look better. They should have done it earlier in the year. And they didn't do it, and I think the defense suffered for it, but the offense has not looked good.
Stuck in neutral.
I don't think Derek Carr's back is truly healthy. And I don't think having his high school wide receivers coach as the OC was a good idea.
Right.
So get rid of Todd Downey, go get somebody else in there. They never should have had Musgrave leave. Call it a wash year for Oakland Chargers, though. They get the win. They keep those playoff hopes alive. If they can get in a one-to-one playoff battle with with the Bills in the head-to-head matchup, they'll get in.
Raiders at Chargers, big game for LA. This may be the game of the week. Panthers at Falcons. The Falcons will be desperate. They need to get that victory. Carolina playing for the NFC South, perhaps.
I think this is your game of the week, by the way.
Yeah.
In a well, could end up being a down Week 17. There is no Sunday night game because the NFL was worried that they were going to end up having a game that didn't matter, kind of like what happened last week, which I get that decision. But I think with Panthers-Falcons, going to be a great game. Carolina on the road, 3.5 underdogs, Cam. That might be your curious line of the week, and for that reason, give me Atlanta. They win, they get into the postseason, and we'll see if they can avenge last year's 28-3 debacle.
Absolutely crucial game there. Panthers at Falcons. We have a reaction poll for the folks at home. Who gets that number 6 seed in the NFC? You going Falcons? You going Seahawks? Give out the respective reactions, and we'll be tracking them, folks. Tom, if you had to pick, where are you going?
I'm going with the heart there. I'm going with the Falcons. I think that they get in with a win. And even if they lose, I wouldn't be surprised if Seattle found a way to blow it this week against the Cardinals.
Wow. All right. Yeah. Mr. Drew Stan at the quarterback position for the Arizona Cardinals. I'm going with the heart. I think the Falcons get the victory over the Carolina Panthers. They get into the postseason. Could be a very tough team to deal with. All right, folks, this has been NFL Daily here on Chat Sports Facebook Live. Cam Rogers with you, Tom Downey alongside. We're presented by Mizzen and Main. Fantastic performance fabric shirts that you will enjoy to the utmost potential. Comfortable.af is that website because these shirts are indeed comfortable as F, and they are made for the moist men out there, Tom. Sweat wicking technology.
Crazy.
So it really fits me great. Fantastic website, too.
Comfortable.af is a great name for a website there. We're going to clip that last one, that last phrase you had, and we're going to put it on social media. Buddy.
Do it. There you go. Hey, I use that line all the time. In fact,
don't use that line.
I think I put that in my commencement speech at the University of Maryland.
You used the phrase moist men.
I use that phrase. Yeah.
Oh my God.
All right, folks, we thank you for tuning in to NFL Daily here on this Friday evening. Come back here on Sunday evening. We'll have a recap edition for Tom Downey. He's going to laugh off the rest of the show. I'm Cam Rogers. We'll see you next time.